Okay, got some parts here from gtgravelyparts.com. This is the card from another package I bought. We should have all of our parts for rebuilding this engine, plus another couple extra goodies that I needed for this tractor we're working on. Let's start off the top here. Into the final couple exciting things here. .30 thousandths oversized piston. Nice shiny new piston. Wrist pin retainers. Just like original, including the expansion slot for the exhaust side. Of course, with 30 thou oversized piston, you need 30 thou oversized rings. Well, I won't get these completely out of their packaging here, but see, we've got the oil ring plus the two compression rings. 30 thou over. And a muffler. So that'll give us some work to get on. Get that jug over to the machine shop, get a board out. Now I have these parts, I'll send the piston to the machine shop so they can accurately bore it to the size of the piston. That's important to do when you're boring the piston. I'll also send the valves and the valve seats with the jug. While it's there, I'll let them push out the old seats, push in the new seats, and I'll have them recut the valve seats on the top. I'll print out a page from the service manual with all the angles on there and the sizes so they can do it per the service manual, and we'll go from there. Also included is some literature, some instructions for installing the bearing cap seals. A pamphlet with some information on joining the Gravely Tractor Club of America. They have a good website. I've used the manual section on their website a lot. And it looks like there is a Gravely show. Looks like it's in conjunction with the Early American Steam Engine Society in Windsor, Pennsylvania. Never been to Pennsylvania, but if I'm ever there in October, I'll look them up. Maybe you should too. Doesn't look too bad with a little cleanup. So, I'm not going to go through the full rebuild in exact step-by-step depth. I'm sure there are other videos out there that'll show that. My goal with my videos is just kind of give you an idea of the overall process, and maybe you'll be interested in doing something similar. So one little tip when you're putting these cases back together is the timing of the cams. The manual mentions putting a straight edge across here, but there's also some timing marks on here. If you look, there's 3 dots on this timing gear. There's also timing marks on these cams. So if we put this center dot up for top dead center, then the dots on the cams will line up with the dots on the timing gear. And then when you put the cases back together, if you rotate the camshaft around, the crankshaft around the top dead center, everything should be timed properly. Now the manual isn't real clear on the crankshaft setting, so hopefully that'll help somebody out. So maybe this will give you a little better idea of what I'm talking about. Here is the center timing mark, and here are the other timing marks aligned with the timing marks on the camshafts. Okay, it's been more than a few weeks, but just a quick moment here in YouTube time on a video. I've gotten busy with the summer. Lots of work to do on the shop, around the house. Machine shop was a little backed up. We finally got this cylinder back. You can see they've done a nice job taking a skim cut on the surface. As you can see by the witness marks here, they took just enough up to clean off to clean it up. Got some nice cross hatching in the cylinders, nice and round, no scoring left. Nice new valves, nice recut valve seats, new valve guides, ready to go back together. So I've got the crankcase back together and inside the Gravely walk behind tractor here. You'll have to excuse the piles of wood. Doing some reorganizing around here, and things are getting a little crowded while I get reorganized. So one thing about this case on this engine, there's no gaskets between these two halves of this engine, the crankcase halves. I understand they put some sort of sealer or shellac on there from the factory. A lot of guys don't put sealer on there. Some guys do. Some guys use silicone, which, if you're careful, you can get away with. Danger of that is if you get some squeeze out inside the crankcase, that piece may come off and plug an oil passage somewhere. So instead of going with no gasket, I used a product called Hylamar Blue. Put a real thin layer of that on there. That doesn't dry hard like silicone. It kind of stays in a tacky state, so I think it'll keep this sealed up. I'll put some more together and bring you guys back and show you some more. Here we've got it partway back together. Of course, I'm cleaning everything as I'm putting it together and using some Lubriplate assembly lube, so nothing's dry when it first starts up and until it gets some oil pressure around it. And now for the piston rings, I set those a thou or two above the minimum ring gap size according to the service manual. I believe they had a 8 thousandths of an inch size range it could be, but I set them 1 or 2 thou above minimum just to guarantee that I had the at least the minimum gap in there. Except for the oil wiper ring, that had about a 40 thousandths size range on there, so I set that about 5 thousandths above the minimum size. Before I continue any more assembly, now that I've got access to the top of the piston here, is a good time to reset the timing on the magneto since I had it all apart. I've put this 1/1000 plunger indicator on here. I found top dead center, and this magneto here has got a faceplate with a line and a dot on it. So at top dead center, I just simply need to align the line on the magneto shaft with the dot, which will put it at the proper timing for top dead center. And they also call for a 15,000 gap in this drive spider here, which I just happen to have this small feeler gauge, which will work good for setting that gap when I button them all up. Now there is a different kind of magneto where it doesn't have the dot, it's just got a line on there, and from what I read that's a lot more complicated. You've got to find the top of the piston, and then you've got to go down, measure down so far on the stroke to properly set that. But luckily, if you've got a magneto like mine, it's a lot easier to set. I'll continue putting this together and bring you back when we get a little further along. And here it is all back together. Doesn't look like much from originally. You can see some new head bolts and stuff, but it doesn't look a whole lot different than it originally did. But we know there's a lot of work inside here. So as long as I got all the timings set, valve lash set, everything's all set properly, then it should fire right up. The only piece of the carburetor that I changed was the mixture control. I put a new packing in there, but I set it to the same position, so it should be close enough to start up. If we do get it to start up here, I'm going to run it for a few minutes, check for some leaks, and I'll shut it back off and recheck the oil level. I haven't replaced the choke or the throttle cables yet. That's something I'll have to do. I've got the original ones on here. They seem to be working okay for now. We'll see what happens. Okay, it's been quite busy this summer. Haven't had a lot of time to work on this. I've got it back together now. It's late August, almost September now. But I have had it running a couple of times. You can see the paint started burning off the muffler there. It doesn't look a whole lot different from when I first started, but we know internally it's different. A few more things I need to finish up. You see I don't have the electric starter hooked back up yet. I need to run some new wires to that, get rid of them big cables that were on there. Now it's been sitting all night since I last run it, so it's nice and cold. We'll see how it starts. Okay, there it is. Got a little adjustments to do on the carburetor. It's running a little rich yet, but it's okay. We can do that. So, said I've run it a couple of times, checked for oil leaks. It's getting good oil pressure on the oil pressure gauge. Topped it up after the first run with oil. It doesn't smoke. Runs and starts pretty good. You see it started off the rope start there. So as far as braking, it has only the cylinders new, not the nothing in the lower end, and it's got an oil filter on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the brush hog on it and do some mowing with it, get a couple hours of runtime on it, then I'll drop the oil and change it out. The plan is to put some duals on this as well. I've got a wet ditch which needs to be brush hogged. But thanks for coming along on the adventure, and if you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. Consider subscribing. Thanks. We'll see you next time.